Hey everybody, welcome to another video. In this one I'm doing kind of the opposite of what I normally do. If you've seen my videos before, you know that I normally find pieces that are absolutely trashed and try to make them beautiful again. With this one, my goal is to try to make this wood look way older than it is, so I'm actually going to be marking it up, adding some scratches and gouges, and it kind of goes against everything I have done, so stay tuned. I'm going for more of an apothecary look with this one. My name is Angie and I refinish furniture. Sometimes I paint and sometimes I don't, but I always do what I can to save old pieces from the trash. Welcome to my workroom. I have personally always loved the look of old apothecary cabinets and not so much loving the look of this dated orange pine, and I understand that some people love this sort of older patinaed amber color that you get when pine ages. I'm just personally not a fan, and I thought this piece would be great for a makeover. While not the fanciest piece, it is all solid pine except for the drawer bottoms. I'm not sure why they didn't use wood, but they didn't, and it is what it is. As always, I'm starting this piece the same way I start every piece, with a good cleaning, removing the hardware. And the hardware that I don't reuse, I always keep, because you never know when you might need to replace just one piece. I'm cleaning the top here with just a heavy-duty degreaser cleaner by Zepp. I use it all the time. I quite like it and it smells nice. More importantly, it's going to lift off any grease or grime that is caked on from however many years this dresser has been in use. If you've ever seen these old pine finishes in person, you know that they are extremely thick. I actually tried to scrape a little bit. I couldn't even get the scraper down through the finish, so my other option would have been to strip it, but it's quite messy, and to be honest, I have to sand down to bare wood anyway for the effect that I'm going for. So I just grabbed I think it's an 80 grit sand pad and just sort of went to town here. After the 80 grit, I moved up to 150, I believe, and that's where I'm going to leave it before moving on to the next step. Now, if I had had the right router bit, I did buy myself a router not that long ago, but I haven't used it yet. I'm a little bit afraid of it. If I had the right bit, I would have, see the channel here in this top drawer? I would have added that to all of the drawers, which would have really given me a more authentic sort of apothecary vibe with this piece. Because, as you know, apothecary cabinets have either very small drawers or very shallow drawers, and typically have those sort of library card catalog style pulls, you know, the ones where you put the little paper in. And while that is the look I'm going for, I just don't feel confident enough yet with the router, and I wasn't able to find a bit that would give me this exact same channel, so I'm making do with what I have. But just wanted to let you guys know that that's what I would have done if I had had the proper stuff. So here's a good view of the top here. You can see I'm down to the bare raw wood, but everything is very sharp and crisp, and if that's the look I was going for, then I would be ready to just move straight on to sealing or painting or whatever my plan would have been. Because I want this to look old, I'm keeping any of the gouges that remain after sanding, but I also have to add a bunch of gouges and scrapes and dings. And what these are going to do is create little pockets when I put the stain on, where the stain will sort of soak in and stay, and it just gives it a very rugged, well-used, worn-in vibe. I have a couple of different tools here. This is a stiff wire brush that I'm just using to do some sort of light surface scratches. This little tool here is pretty handy for just sort of rounding and digging up the edges. Had I not done this technique a million times when creating old shelves, I'd probably be a little bit scared of what I'm doing here, but trust me, this is going to look great. The flat edge of a putty knife is great for creating the illusion of cracking on the end grain here. The key to doing this properly is to not make it overly uniform. If it looks too uniform, it looks too artificial, and I want this to look as authentic as it possibly can. This very sharp tool here is great for creating the illusion of wormholes, which does not sound as horrible when you think about it, but it is pretty much a given when you're dealing with older wood. Like, I'm talking like a century-old wood. You almost always see these little wormholes, so I'm randomly adding these throughout the piece. And all of the techniques you're seeing me do here on the top, I'm also going to be mirroring on the drawers. One of my favorite tools is the ring bolt here, and it's great because you can use the edges for creating sort of slightly rounded gouges, but the end is my favorite, especially when the stain gets in those spots. So you can see here I've already done these. They look, aside from the color of the wood, they look old, they look beat up, dinged, and I'm so excited to get on with the stain. Whenever I try to do this look and effect, I like to use a penetrating stain. And in this case, I'm using Minwax Dark Walnut. It's my favorite one to use for this, especially on pine. What I like about it is that pine generally doesn't absorb stain all that evenly. It tends to be a little bit blotchy. And for a look like this, I find it's absolutely perfect. So I'm just using a sponge brush to apply it, making sure that I've wiped the stain into every little gouge and every little hole, and then I wipe it back. And there's a bit of a strange glare here, so you'll see in a few minutes what the color actually looks like. But you can see how parts of this are accepting the stain and parts aren't. That's exactly the look I want here. Now this looks slightly darker than it's going to dry. I'm going to set this aside, move on to the next drawer, and then get tackling the top. Tamping down the bottom of the brush into all of the little sort of wormhole things I've created, it's generally the easiest way to get the stain down in there. Sometimes if you just run the brush across the top, it doesn't get down far enough, so just kind of squish it onto the top and you'll get it in there. Another little trick I sort of stumbled upon is rubbing a little bit more of the stain off along the edges and the sides, and it also helps to give this more of a worn look, and only in certain spots. Again, if you're trying this, you want it to look as natural as possible, and furniture doesn't tend to wear evenly. It's worn in some spots, gouged in some spots, totally fine in other spots. One thing I forgot to record, but you'll actually see in the final pictures, is the sides. I left some of the original finish sanded down slightly, but I left a little bit of it still intact so that when I put the stain over it, there would be these sort of big swaths of more of the older, it's really hard to explain, but you'll see what I'm talking about when I show you the final photos. I sealed the whole piece in my favorite beeswax hemp oil combo, and somehow it slipped my mind, but as you can see here now, I forgot to fill the original hardware holes. I could still do that and try to stain it to match, which wouldn't be that difficult, but to be honest, the little library card slips of paper that go in there, it's gonna hide it anyway. I just don't feel like doing it at this point, so just overlook it, please. Most likely, I'll just go in with some walnut colored putty, which will match the stain before I do sell the piece. You don't see it here in the video. I actually really like these Apothecary Style pulls. I've used them on several other pieces in the past, and I'm actually cutting up both white slips and black slips that can fit inside so that the people who end up purchasing this can decide which look they like the best. I personally like how it looks with the black better than the white, but it's all personal preference really. Let's have another quick look at this dresser. There wasn't really anything wrong with it per se, it just had a little bit of a dated look, and I wanted to try something different, and solid pine is the best wood in my opinion to sort of do this technique with, because it's soft, and as you're pressing the tools into it, it is going to give way and allow you to create different sort of dents and gouges. And it's so strange to be saying this because normally I'm trying to fix those things. The old Apothecary Style is very hot right now and has a bit of an industrial vibe to it in a way. And I just thought I would take this opportunity with this dresser to show you how I make pine that has been sanded back to look pretty much new and make it look decades old. Thank you for sticking with me this far. Let's have a look at this newly created piece.